Hey guys, still here. Welcome to Steel Division Normandy 44. Yes, the NDA has been lifted. I'm allowed to talk about the game now. And moreover, you can play the game. The game is available for pre-order on Steam. You have the choice between going for the €40 version, so that's about $40 as well. And I think 36 pounds maybe. Or going for the more advanced version, or the premium version for €60, so say $60, 52 pounds maybe. I have the advanced division here, or the advanced version of the game, so the premium version. But whichever version you pick, you get access to this open beta. Now, as you can see, not everything is available yet. We still don't have the boot camp, which is the tutorial version of the game. We still don't have all the battle groups. Currently I don't have any battle groups because what I'm going to be doing this video is discussing the building of a battle group, and the single player campaign is not in the game yet. So it is purely a bare bones version of the game, and it is very much up to you whether you think the game is anything to your liking as it is, or whether you just want to wait for the full release, which will happen sometime later in May. I'm not exactly sure about the exact date, but I believe it's May 20 something. Anyways, let's get started on a battle group. If you're coming from Wargame, the battle group system is the deck system. So this is the way that they have changed this. If you're completely new to Steel Division, a battle group is the battle group, the army that you take into a fight. Keep in mind that any of these have their own specialty. If you're coming from Wargame, you're going to notice that you don't create a battle group anymore saying, okay, what's the name, what's the nation, what's the specialty, etc. You don't have that. You just have new battle group. I'm just going to call this one Alpha. Once you have selected a name for your deck, because, well, that's just what I'm going to call them, decks or battle groups, I'm going to interchange those two. You have the choice between going between going allies or axis. For the allies, you don't have any general decks. You have the 3rd Armored Spearhead or the 15th Infantry, which is a Scottish group. Now, these are not exactly Scottish, of course, these are British in general, and these are the Americans. You can see here they have an armored division specialty. They rely on tanks, some heavy infantry and armored transports, and SPGs, as well as anti-tank guns. They're the most mobile divisions. Then you have the infantry. The infantry divisions in this game rely heavily on cheap and numerous infantry. Infantry tanks, so these are tanks that can support the infantry. You don't get any super cruiser tanks like that. Or artilleries. Less mobile than a more mechanized one, they can slowly grind an enemy to death. Keep in mind that this will cause you to be a bit more static in your gameplay. You won't be as flexible or as mobile as you normally are. For the Axis, we have the 12 SS Panzer Hitlerjugend. This is their armored division. And they have the 91st Luftlande division, which is an airborne infantry division. And this one is roughly similar to the ones that you have in the Allies. It's just slightly different, I believe, but I haven't looked into that too much yet. What I want to do now is build a 3rd Armored Battle Group. So I'm going to select that one. And now we have the deck builder system. Now you can see that you have 3 phases in this game. You have the A, Combat Recon. You have the B, Skirmish, and C, Battle. So this is the phase where you don't have that much yet. You don't have that much in income, you don't have that many units to pick from. In B, you're going to be doing a bit more skirmishing, so the fight intensifies. And then in C, it's a full-blown battle. Now, if you haven't seen the way that they use this system yet, the battle is actually divided in these 3 phases. So phase A, you can only have a specific type of units, or you can only have a specific level of units. C phase allows you to buy absolutely everything, and B phase is somewhere in between. This has implications for your deck building, because it means that if you want to, for example, grab some terrain in phase A, hold on to that terrain in phase B and grab a lot more terrain or start actively pushing in phase C, then you're going to have to set up your deck in a manner that supports that. Don't get all the units in phase A, because the units in phase C tend to be more effective or more cost effective. So let's have a look at what they have. We have recon, infantry, tanks, supports, anti-tank, anti-air, artillery and aircraft. And you can see that because this is an armored deck, the tank section has many more slots than, for example, the anti-tank section. I won't be relying that much on anti-tank because my tanks are just going to go one-on-one to take on their tanks. Similarly, I don't have that much in infantry, I don't have that much in artillery, and anti-air and aircraft could become a problem. This is something I will really need to look out for. One thing that you might be missing as a wargame player is a logistics tab. This is the tab that you normally have your FOB, so your forward operating base, your supply trucks, your command infantry, units like those that you really need to keep your army going. Those are not in this game. Yes, you do have command infantry or command units, but they work slightly differently. You do not have a FOB, and supply trucks cannot repair units. This is critical. They cannot repair your units. If your infantry group gets damaged, so if you have a couple of casualties in your group and let's say your manpower goes down from 10 to 5, then there's no way to get those guys back up to full strength. This is going to take a lot of getting used to. I have about 1300 hours in Wargame. This, for me, will be an absolute struggle. Anyway, let's get to building. Reconnaissance. What I want to have is a couple of units in phase A, a couple of units in phase B, and a couple of units in phase C. Now, as per the units, they have their own cards, and there are a lot less units in this game than there are in Wargame. You are not going to be peering over your decks that much, or at least not as much as you might be doing in Wargame, because you have fewer options. What you do need to pay attention to is, for example, these units that have different loadouts or different types of ammunition. If you have a look at, for example, the M8, it comes with a 37mm gun. This one has a rate of fire of 7 rounds a minute. It fires 7 AP piercing value rounds, and it carries 55 of those. It also carries HE rounds, which have an HE value of 3. And the higher the HE value, the closer to the point of impact. The higher the physical impact and the higher suppression will be. So fire this at an infantry group, and if it hits, it's going to do quite a bit of damage. But if you hit a tank with HE, it will not do anything, usually. So you're not only going to have to keep an eye on, do I have enough ammo in general, but do I have enough ammo of both? Now, fortunately, units tend to have quite a bit of ammo on board. For example, the 7.62mm gun that they have there, it has 2,000 rounds. Yes, it fires those at 258 rounds a minute. Let's say you fire on average 200 rounds a minute if the guy is in almost full contact, and you're going to be spending 10 minutes clearing out the ammunition storage on this gun. So that is going to last for quite a while. This is how you should be looking at all the stats. And this is something I'm going to go into further detail in a different video. This is not so much a sheer deck building video, as more of an overall look on how the game is going to perform. So, let's get some infantry. This is a standard scout group. You also get this group with a jeep, but the jeep is a bit unusual if you're coming from Wargame. Once you have dropped off your infantry, so your scouts, the jeep disappears. It just ceases to exist. So it's not like you're going to be able to use a jeep as, let's say, a battle probe, so something that doesn't have any optics, but that you can send forward and wait for it to get killed off. That's not how this game works. Anyways, I want to have some cheap scouts in phase A. Now, normally, you left click once or twice to add a unit. In this game, you click right mouse button. This is something that can be confusing, especially if you keep switching back and forth between these two games. The M8 while it is nice, is very expensive, especially considering that my income is not going to be that high in this phase. It's only 65. So I would need to wait at least a minute and a half before I get the M8. So I'm going to rely mostly on scouts. And these scouts have a strength of 4. You also have recon. These have a scout strength of only 2. But their stealth is very good versus the stealth rating, which is also good. Let's see, what's the difference between these two? I need to pin these guys into position. No, not going to add them yet. Let's see. Cargo space is very light for the recon. I'm not exactly sure what the point is here. Oh, never mind. It lies in the difference of the Jeep. This recon group is going to get a Jeep. And unlike this Jeep, this one does not disappear. This one does come with a machine gun and will stay in the battle. Its optics are low, but it can at least provide a bit of fire support to your other units, which is nice. So I also want to have, let's say, one of those. You can see this is times 4, this is times 3, so that's the amount of units that I'm going to be getting in the pack. Next, for Phase B and Phase C, I want to rely more on the M8 because it's nice and mobile. So I want to have one card of these, and I want to have one card of these. Now take note that, as I mentioned, units in Phase C might be more effective. Because for Phase B, if I click one card, I'm going to get 2 units. If I pick one card of 2, or one card in Phase C, I get 3 units, so you get more of them. This is going to be a tactical consideration. Do I wait for Phase C, risk being eliminated in Phase A or B, and basically go for more units in Phase C, or do I invest more units into Phase A and B? This is going to be the challenge. And then, to make matters worse, you also have to contend with your activation points, which is how many points or how many cards you can have. Now let's move on to infantry for a bit. You have army rifles. I think that is what that stands for, ARM. You also have the ARM leader. Now, leader units allow your forces to stay a little while longer without getting panicked. These are, I think you could compare them to sergeants or something like that. Guys who keep your forces motivated. And as such, they can be very important. Because a unit that gets completely overwhelmed, that loses its morale, is going to get wiped out. That is a very important game mechanic that you immediately need to wrap your head around. If you don't have these guys mixed in with your forces, you are going to find them out of action rather quickly. Now, my plan for this armored deck is in Phase A to capture some terrain. So I'm going to need some army rifles to do that. Phase B, I might need a leader. I'm not exactly sure yet. And keep in mind that this is a leader unit which does not have the same strength as army rifles. Army rifles have a strength of 10. Leaders have a strength of 4. Which is far less and far easier to kill. Then you have engineers. Now, I still have to try out exactly how these guys work. I haven't really fitted them yet. They carry a bag of TNT, which has an HE value of 20. So this is going to be really good against enemy infantry. But their range is 100 meters. So these guys need to be really close before they're able to drop off one of these charges. And while this might be possible in a town, it is not going to be that possible if you're dealing, for example, with an open field. That's something that you will have to consider. Since I would rather not fight in towns too much, I'm not going to be focusing on the engineers. I'm instead going to take an HMG group. And this HMG group is going to cost me 50 points in Phase B. I get 4 units of these. Now they are a 4-man squad. They have a machine gun at a range of 600 meters and can provide suppressive fire. They can make sure that the enemy infantry does not move up. Added to that, I get the M3 with another 7.62mm gun. the Browning M19M10, which can also provide additional support for suppressing enemy infantry. These guys are pretty important to have. Phase C, I get the Army LMG rifles, which also come with light machine guns, hence the term. Compare that to these, and they don't get that. They do get the bazooka. These guys don't get the bazooka. So it's constantly switching back and forth to look, okay, what do I have, what do I need? Is this unit going to be critical in this phase? Now this deck does not have any Phase C infantry. It simply is not there. You can see the scroll bars at the end of it. This may change as it goes to full release. I'm not sure yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep it to Phase B, because hey, I'm an armored deck. I should be focusing on armor. For now, I want to keep these guys in my deck as well, to make sure that I can hold on to towns, especially combine those with the HMG. And I am going to add one group of engineers to make sure that I can throw out some of those satchel packs. Moving on, and this is where the deck really comes to show. We can get tanks, and considering we are an armored deck, you can see that these stars indicate the veterancy level. And because we're an armored deck, we get a bit more veterancy. Again, the higher you go in phases, the more units you will get. If I'm going to get an M4A3 76, I can get 3 of those for 1 card in Phase C, but I can only get 1 of them per card in Phase B. So this is a very important consideration, because this deck, with its units which are very expensive, will allow me to buy 1 of these tanks in Phase B, where it might be pretty much invincible due to its armor layout and gun placement, but it might not so much be that invulnerable in Phase C. So this again is going to be a consideration. I'm going to be focusing with, let's say, cheaper units in Phase A. These are going to be the fast units that can also push up with my infantry. And you can see that I get Command M5A1s. These things cost me 90 points and I get 2 of them. I also have the standard M5A1, which is going to cost me the same amount of points per unit to bring in, but I get 5 of them per card. I want to have 1 of these. I also want to have, let's say for Phase B, I want to have a Command M4A1. For Phase B, I also want to have a couple M4A375s. So these are the different version. For Phase C, I want to focus on the Jumbo. I want to have the M4A376. And I want to have a command unit to go along with that, which I think is going to be the Command M4A1, which I already have 1 of. Now, this is something I really enjoy. If you add a unit, it's going to line up in Phase A, B, or C. So it's not like you're going to have A, C, C, A, B, B. That way you'd have to manually pick and choose and really pay close attention to what do I have and where do I have it. The game filters this automatically for you, which makes your life a lot easier. So I want to have another command tank. What I don't have that much yet in Phase B is tanks, and Phase A is even worse. So in Phase A I also want to add an M4A1, the standard tank. I only get 1 of these per card, but they can be pretty powerful in this phase. So I definitely want to have 1. I'm going to keep 1 slot open, I might revisit it later. Supports. These are the 50 cal jeeps. They are very nice at suppressing enemy infantry, which is going to be an important element for my deck. They're only 35 points, you get 3 of them per card. Note that this is the support tab, and you can also find the GMC here. These things carry logistics. You wouldn't really say it by the looks of the stats on the card, but this icon is important. Supply. This vehicle carries ammunitions to resupply nearby units. They can also be used as transport vehicles. Keep in mind, you cannot repair your units. Again, very important here. You cannot repair them. This is a sheer ammo carrier that you might not purely need in Phase A. But in Phase A, I can bring in 3. In Phase B, I can bring in 5. And Phase C doesn't see these units. I don't think I'm going to need them in Phase A, because that would mean a unit would run out of ammo inside of 10 minutes. Not that likely. So I'm going to go for a GMC in phase B. I want to have the Jeeps, so I already added those. I can also get an M20 command vehicle, which I don't think I need because I have plenty of command units. But the M8 Scott might be a nice one to help out. These things I can call in numbers of 2 in phase A, and phase B and C don't have them. They do have a more effective unit, which is the M4A3-105. Support units are mostly there to support your units on the front line and are not meant to go one-on-one with, for example, an enemy tank. The fact that you're looking at a tank here does not mean that this is a good tank killer. Because take note, this thing does not have any AP values, which means it cannot do anything if it comes up to enemy armor. What it can do is deliver a hammer blow of 14 HE with 66 rounds of ammunition at a 1200 meter range. This thing has a 38 meter area of effect. If this thing hits anywhere close to an enemy infantry group, they're going to notice. So I really want to have one of these cards. But once again, the question becomes when? When do I bring them and what veterancy do I bring them in? Now, because I'm intending to use this thing as a fire support vehicle, I'm going to go for the one that only has 1-star veterancy. This means that it's not going to be as accurate or as good at recovering from morale damage, but it does mean that I get 2 of them per card, which is slightly more efficient. And then for phase C, I can get 4 of them. If you're dealing with an infantry heavy group, you may want to consider bringing a couple of these. However, this is only phase C, so in phase B I could opt for a flamethrower, which would also be a nice unit against infantry, but in a completely different type. Because this one can be very effective at dealing with infantry at up to 1.2 kilometers away. The flamethrower only has a range of 100, so it is much more useful for clearing out a town. What I want to have is at least one M8 Scott in phase A, so I can hit infantry where it hurts. Phase B is going to be dealing with the M4A3. And, well, I still have plenty of activation points left. Let's go with one of these. Now you can see here sometimes at the bottom that it says 5 with a shield around it. This is something that immediately tells you the armor value of the vehicle itself. So this 11 corresponds with the frontal armor of the tank, or of the unit that you're looking at. So you can see immediately that the M8 Scott only carries 5 armor, and the M4A3 carries 11. I'm not exactly sure what the highest or lowest values are. I haven't played the game enough for that yet, but this is how the system will work. Moving on, anti-tank. This is much more for solid gun emplacements, so a defensive position. These are not that great at attacking because their speed is so damn low. They have a speed of 5 kilometers per hour, and thereby you can get them into a position pretty quick. But moving them away? Oh dear, that's going to take you forever. At the same time, they do have a pretty good value for AP. Note their lack of HE. They are not going to be that effective against infantry groups, but I might be able to deal with those with the M3 transport. So, in phase A, I'm not going to be that aggressive because I don't have that many tanks yet, so I will have one of those in phase A. Phase C phase C is the phase where I get most of my tanks. I might add another card here, so I'm not going to be emphasizing units for anti-tank on phase C too much. So for phase B, I want to get one of these cards. The M1 76mm gun, which has an AP value of 14 and 5 HE against infantry. This one doesn't have HE rounds, but only 11 against AP. But then again, they're only 75 points versus 120. Moving on to anti-air. Now, do not let this confuse you. Anti-air is primarily suited for anti-air warfare, shooting down or suppressing enemy aircraft. That does not mean that that is their only role. They can be very, very effective at dealing with enemy infantry. So making sure that you have one of these in phase A can be rather nice if you're dealing with infantry that's coming a bit too close and needs some suppression fire, because they have an HE value of 14. They do, however, fire their rounds pretty quickly. They have a 4800 store of ammunitions, but they have a rate of fire of 1600 rounds a minute. So unlike my earlier vehicle that I demonstrated, I believe it was the M8, which spends 10 minutes going through its ammunition supply, this one can do that in 3. This one may need a supply truck. I'm going to bring 1 in phase A. I'm going to bring 2 of the M15 CGMC in phase B, and I'm going to bring a couple more in phase C. I'm not going to spend too much on this, but they are important for me, because air can be an important threat to my tanks. So that's why I'm going to pick quite a bit of NTR. I might add some Bofors as well, because the Bofors have better range. They have a range of 1100 meters versus the 800 meters. Their HE value is also pretty significant at 21. And yes, they can use that range against infantry as well. So I also want to have one of these cards. And it's only going to get me 2 of these guns, but they might be very valuable. Alrighty, artillery is important for tanks. You may be thinking, well, why? Well, because it can put up a smoke screen. You can pick different versions of mortars. You can go with a mortar that is carried by a couple of guys. You can see that their speed is 6 kph. You could also say, well, I want to have something a bit more effective at moving around, such as the M21. I'm going to be paying more for it, but its speed is 35 on rough terrain and 80 kph on the roads. So that is much, much faster. Then you have the M4A1 OP, which I believe carries the tracked or the what is this? A towed gun after it. Range? Indefinite. Indefinite. Okay, I can see the visual, but I'm not exactly sure how this works. Do these things call in external battery fire? Yes, there it is. This tank is not something that actually fires the artillery itself, nor is it carrying towed guns. This one is an artillery observer, which is basically a new class of units if you're coming from Wargame. These guys allow you to call in fire support from off-map units. So the artillery itself cannot be killed off, but once you kill off this unit, the enemy can no longer call in the artillery. They can provide HE fire. They cannot provide smoke screens. So what I could do is have one of these in my deck as a general fire supporter. So this one's going to call in an early strike first, and then once the early strike has landed, I'm going to push with my forces. But I'm still going to need smoke. And for that I want to have the M21, because this one can put up smoke, which is this icon. It doesn't really explain what's going on, but you have the HE3 there. That's the HE value. This one has no HE, but a little puff of smoke sitting next to it. Carries 30 smoke rounds. So when I have one of these, and you can see double clicking just doesn't do anything. Another unit that I really want to have in this deck is the Calliope. It carries 114mm T-34 rockets, doing 30 HE over a range of 1300 meters. They do take up quite a lot of supplies to resupply, but if you fire this at a town or an enemy strong position, then it will clear out that position pretty quickly. Again, which phase do you call these in? Because I could call in a Calliope in phase B, which is going to take me 2 minutes to save up for, so it's not that easy to get. And therefore I'm going to call in the Calliope in phase C. For phase B, I'm going to go for something slightly cheaper in the form of the M7 HMC, also known as the Priest, which can also put up smoke screens, but it only carries 10 rounds, so I'd rather not rely on it too much. And putting up a smoke screen with this thing at 4 rounds a minute, not really. So this one is more for suppressing enemy infantry. And then we get air. This is a new type of aircraft. Again, if you're coming from Wargame, you might not be familiar with scout planes. These are aircraft that can circle around the battlefield. They have very high optics, or very good optics, as we would say in Wargame. Their speed, well, at 60, it's very slow, pretty damn easy to shoot down, but it can be a very nice support aircraft to initially spot what's going on. Alternatively, you have the Rosie, which does come with armament. So this thing has very good optics and some munitions on it. You can see them there underneath the wingtips. This one carries the M1 bazooka. It only has an accuracy stat of 1 on a scale of 10, so it's lucky to land in the same zip code. 8 HE, 6 rounds only, range 800 meters, which it will need. And at the same time, you can use it as a spotter. So whereas this is pretty much a purebred spotter, this one can also strike a target if it sees a target of opportunity. I'm going to go with the grasshopper. I need to know what's going on. Another element that for me is going to be especially important is deterring enemy aircraft from engaging mine. So I'm going to need to have fighters up in the air. That would be for me the P-51D Mustang in Phase A. P-38 Lightning can also dogfight, although I wouldn't really recommend it. The P-51D Mustang can also be brought in Phase B, which it's going to give me 3 units instead of 2. You also have the Thunderbolt, which is classed as a ground attack aircraft, a medium rocket plane. Engages units with, 19 HE rockets. Let's see, we cannot see where they have stashed those, but probably internal. The P-38D Lightning is a bomber, so that's not too suitable. And then once again you got a P-47 Thunderbolt, again a rocket plane. And I don't really have any fighters, short of what I can bring in Phase A and Phase B. It's just the Mustang. And again, this might change. So by the time that you might be watching this video, we might be seeing way more aircraft. So, for me, I want to have, let's say, Phase B, I want to have my Mustangs. I don't think the enemy is going to be investing in Phase B in aircraft that much, or at least I bloody hell don't hope so. And for Phase B, I also want to have something that can deal with enemy infantry, which would be the P-38 Lightning. I only get 1, and these things are set up as a heavy bomber. So if this thing flies over and kills your infantry, or drops something on your infantry, you're gonna notice. Now I still have 4 activation points left, so I can now revisit what I want to spend those points on. And unlike Wargame, you don't have units which come or which get subsequently more expensive. So it's not like I add 1 more unit here and I burn through 4 points. This is something else that you may have to get used to if you're coming in from Wargame. The activation points basically allow you to buy anything in these categories that you might see fit. So you're not going to have standard armored decks that also or always have the same type of units. You could see pretty different units. Now I think that in Phase A I'm a bit light on infantry, so I want to have a few more of these rifle groups. This puts me at 8 rifle groups, 4 engineers, 4 HMGs, and 4 other units of infantry. That's the Army LMG rifles. Not going to go for anti-tank. I'm going to get another tank. I want to have something that's not too expensive, but numerous, such as the M5A1. So that I can get tank support pretty much anywhere. But I already have 5 of those and 2 commands, so I should have enough. Let's see. Phase A is sitting on about 7-8 tanks. Phase B not that many. And Phase C even fewer. But Phase C I think is where this deck is really going to shine, because that's when you have that high amount of income. And that's when you can start to really afford these tanks. So I'm going to go for a couple more of these M4A376. Leaves me with 2 points. I'm going to have another Bofors in here. because the Bofors are excellent AA units and can also suppress infantry. Leaves me with 1 unit. How about Reconnaissance? This should be enough. So I'm going to go with a bit of infantry. Some cheap fire support infantry. Yes, they're going to be dead slow, but at least they're not as expensive as these guys. So that's the deck. And now it's time to test out this deck, which I will be doing in a next video, which will hopefully be later up today, if my voice holds out. I've been recording quite a bit today, so I hope that's going to happen. Anyway, this is the first look. It's the open beta. You can join in if you want to by just pre-ordering the game or ordering the game. I'm not exactly sure how you would put this, because you can already play, but the game isn't officially released yet. So you're joining in an open beta. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what you think about the deck. Let me save this one and then share it in the deck code or in the description. You can export your own decks by clicking the export button, and then you get this string, which is what I'm going to copy to the comment section. So if you ever want to share a deck with a buddy, this is how you do it. You just send them that, they copy it, they click import, they paste it, and you're done. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you soon for the next video on Steel Division, which is going to be the first of many. See you soon.